Uh, so I'm hoping that you can help me out with an ethical conundrum. It has to do with how channels get monetized here on YouTube and how journalism can sort of like move forward. Because I have this idea for a video that I think is like really important and really interesting and it's going to require a ton of work, but I'm like 100% certain that YouTube will look at it and be like, nope, demonetized. You're violating our content policies on violence, which I'm sort of glad that there are content policies on YouTube, but there's this conflict with journalism that, I don't really know how to resolve it. Let me give you an example. So a few days ago, I did this video about a doomsday cult in Japan, the one that set off like sarin gas attacks in the Tokyo subway. I did this video about them, and it was about how they may or may not have acquired a nuclear weapon. And I thought it was a pretty interesting video, very much just like what a reporter does. Here's an interesting question. We're going to look for facts. We're going to try to report it. And try as I might, I couldn't edit the video in a way that it wasn't just like ripped right off of YouTube. You can't make money on it. As a reporter, if I'm going to spend like 3 weeks on a topic, which is what I did, I read a book and I interviewed a bunch of people. That's just not sustainable. And here's the other problem: is like I have this other idea, and I'm going to just tell you what it is before I work on it, so that at least you know where my brain is before I dump a ton of time into it. Which is, there's this war going on in Ukraine. There's another one going on in Palestine, and it seems to me that things have changed in warfare so dramatically in the last, 3 years that we as a human race haven't really contended with it. I'm really talking about drone warfare. Now, there are subreddits here on the internet. You can go over to like Ukraine war reports on Reddit, and you can see like endless videos of drones flying over Russian soldiers. But there's a Russian version too, where these drones fly over Ukrainian soldiers, and they drop grenades on people in foxholes in an endless series of essentially propaganda videos where you're basically watching snuff films for the entire length of this subreddit. And it seems like there's this other parallel war going on, not only the war where people are actually dying, but a war that we are live streaming and that we are all living through and watching and getting millions of upvotes on these videos. And I think that is changing the way we think about conflict and death. And, these videos are terrible. I'm not going to use a video in my video, but I think even talking about how these things are changing is something that here on this YouTube platform they don't want you to talk about because it's about violence and death. But violence and death are things that happen, right? And so how do we make this balance as news organizations, as reporters, to talk about reality when the business of talking about reality is not possible? And I spent all night thinking about last night how you know the the newspapers are gutted. Like if you go to the New York Times, it's like a lot of like opinion pieces. It's a shadow of what it once was. The Atlantic is not doing as good as it was. A lot of the magazines I used to work for are just out of business and gone. Where do we get objective data? I've had done other podcasts and things saying that essentially the internet is going to be going to like influencers, like talking heads like me, or individual reporters who go out to war zones and self-fund their reporting. That is where everything is going. And we're going to compete against Johnny Harris, who actually does a great channel, but also like all the talking heads around the world. We're going to be competing against them. And yet there's no pathway for people to talk about things that are important and that are happening in the world. And so where does the future of your information, where does it come from? Like, where are you going to learn about things that don't happen directly in front of you? Or is it going to be from Joe Rogan, or you're not going to be going to CNN, you're not going to be going to the New York Times, because those two things may not even exist. How do you know about the world that you don't directly experience? Is it going to be some wellness influencer? Is it going to be Andrew Huberman telling you about his opinion on Ukraine? Is it like we're in a real serious problem? And so my ethical conundrum is like, how do I, as a reporter who's like ridiculously underfunded, I mean, just look at this video, look at my background. Like, I'm in Mexico City. This is my microphone. Like this is my setup. I'm talking on an iPhone right now with a little tripod. Like this is the news that I can put together on the budget that I have. How are we going to like live in the world in the future? Like, we have two polarized camps in America. We have the Democrats and we have the Republicans. And let's say the nightmare scenario of both sides is right. Like, let's say Trump is a fascist who's going to take over the whole world and make it into his, like, or make America into his private corporate fiefdom that bows down to Putin, and that Biden is a doddering idiot who has no control over his brain anymore, and he's falling apart, and he's going to turn to a socialist, dystopia. Let's say both those things are true. They're not, but let's say they were. How are you going to know that they're true if you're only listening to information from one camp or another camp or some random influencer who has no fact checking around it? And the reporters who are left standing, currently I'm still standing. I'm actually standing right now in front of my tripod. The reporters left standing have no way to actually make a living doing that. What does this world look like in the future? And should I go out and should I actually do this video for essentially for free? Right? Should I, and I've dedicated a lot of time on this channel doing things essentially for free because I'm like I want to tell my stories, and I'm, you can tell by the way I move, I'm like super ADD, right? And I can put this effort into these channels, but what is the long-term sustainability? Do I have an ethical imperative to work for free? I mean, maybe I do. Maybe that's what the future actually is. We have to compete against influencers, and the information that you get is just going to be the information you get. It's probably going to conform to opinions that you already have. Anyway, next time you see me, I'm going to have actually a better mic setup, and I'll be in a different location, and so you'll see some cool videos in the next few weeks. Those are my thoughts for right now. Thanks so much for watching. Like, subscribe, whatever it is you need to internet do.